Man, my brain is not working today. So over the years, I have purchased many a Jinhao. In this video, I'd like to show you these Jinhao pens, basically tell you which ones are my favorites, and also show you the problems I have with each one. Now the first Jinhao fountain pen I got was this one. This is the Jinhao 599. And it's like a Lamy Safari clone basically. It's not a good Lamy Safari clone because it's got Jinhao written on it, of course. So it's not like they've actually tried to do a complete knockoff clone of it. They are proud to bear their own name. Jinhao 599. It writes very well. It's got a pretty good, Lamy Safari grip to it. It can be used upside down as well for a thinner line, the nib. Basically every Jinhao fountain pen I've ever used except for this one, you're able to use the nibs upside down very smoothly. It's quite impressive for, a cheap brand. I'll show you what it's like on more absorbent paper. It's possibly also called the 599A as well. Now you probably noticed the body of this pen looks pretty shocking. That is because over the years as I've put the body back on after refilling it, I might often overzealously over-tighten the thing, and I've slowly cracked the body in half. Right. So I poorly just glued the thing back together with super glue, which is why it looks so terrible. A similar pen is the Jinhao 777. This is also another Lamy Safari lookalike. Even more so because it's got, a better looking pocket clip to it, which looks more Lamy-like. Jinhao 777 can be used upside down. The ink flow is actually usually better in these, but I put some kind of stupid experimental homemade filtered sumi ink in these, but they still are performing pretty well despite that. I usually find the ink flow out of this particular nib to be excellent. This is the extra fine nib. I'm actually not a very big fan of this style of grip anymore. I find that it restricts your grip pattern. I end up gripping it here on the edges. It wants me to grip it there like that. I don't find that very comfortable. So I must prefer just a circular grip. Also, when you hold the nib upside down, you end up gripping it there, here, and here. So it's kind of like, what is the point of this funny shaped grip? Another thing I don't like about these Lamy Safari designs is that if you do want to post your pen cap, I find this lightweight body, right, and this very heavy pen cap with the enormous pocket clip on the back, it has a real whoa, dump truck kind of effect on the back of it, and it's a bit, unruly, So I think this one here on the 599 is actually a bit lighter. So it doesn't swing around as much. Yeah, it's not very good. Anyway, I use these pens for many years. I think I've had this one since 2020 maybe. This one even earlier. I probably had this one since 2017. So they do last quite a while. This one here, once again though, the cheap plastic body did break and I had to glue it back together after a few years. Because once again I was going, oh yeah, I've tightened it up, and I would tighten it up too far, like that there, you see, like there we go. So they write very well, the Jinhao Lamy clones, and but the actual plastic that the body is made out of could be better quality. I think the next one I bought here is the Jinhao 65. Now this one writes extremely well. Jinhao 65. This is once again an extra fine nib. It can be used upside down to make even finer lines. The ink flow is perfect. Very beautiful, simple design. Just a straight piece of steel tube, basically. But the design is only really nice as far as it looks, I'm afraid, because I cannot, for the life of me, grip a piece of polished steel very well. So that's why this rubber grip is here. I actually pushed this rubber grip off a disposable ballpoint pen, and then I shoved it on the fountain pen here. And after doing that, this has become probably my second favorite fountain pen that's made by Jinhao. Now there is another Jinhao fountain pen, the Jinhao 35, which is also a nice sleek piece of metal. Unfortunately, I lost that one, so I can't show you here. But I think it's actually worse, even though it looks better, because the Jinhao 35 has a metal grip. It goes metal all the way down to the nib, so it's slippery basically everywhere. That's the one reason I didn't like it. I do not like a slippery pen. I don't know why people make them. Lots of companies make slippery pens that you can't grip. It really, really annoys me why they even exist. I don't know what they're thinking. Even like some very expensive pens, you know, just slippery. Why are they doing this? Are they just designed to, like, you know, write out checks for, like, you know, 2 seconds and then put away before you actually get RSI? Or I don't get it. Anyway, rubber grip I like. Doesn't come with a pen though, so you'll have to get your own disposable ballpoint pen to tear that off. I'd like to talk about this one. This one here is a good example of what Jinhao is actually capable of producing. This is a really high quality feeling fountain pen. This is the Jinhao X750. Even the piston converter is strangely good quality. The whole pen, the body of the pen here, is made out of metal. It's very heavy. The pen cap is heavy. It's a very good quality product. How could you not be impressed with this? I have no idea. The problem is that, well, it doesn't post well. That's one problem. No, the pen cap doesn't stay on. Anyway, the problem is that it's actually not very grippy once again, and it's too heavy for the amount of grip it provides. This grip section here is actually, it feels like it's designed to be as slippery as possible. Don't know what they were thinking. Anyway, it's for this reason alone why this thing has never ever had ink in it in its whole life. I have used other Jinhao X750s, which I think I got a stainless steel one and another one which was like a nice off-white color, which I destroyed in some kind of horrible experiment. But anyway, I have actually never used them for very much at all because I can't hold them for very long without my hands hurting, because they're just too heavy and slippery to use as far as I'm concerned. But if this did have ink in it, I'm sure it would write very well. Jinhao, well, it feels very smooth with that ink, you know, X750. Oh yeah, look at that. Beautiful. Upside down, just as lovely. Look at that, isn't that amazing? This here is the Jinhao 994. This is the cheapest Jinhao I have ever bought. I bought this for like $1, including postage, somehow. I don't know how they can produce a pen for that much. Slave labor? I don't know. Anyway, it writes sort of okay. This is the only Jinhao pen I have ever purchased that actually can't be used with the nib upside down. It just simply doesn't work at all. The grip is, it's sort of average, but it's so light it almost doesn't matter that much. Yeah, the only reason why I bought this thing is because, you know, it looks sleek and it was cheap. It's the only reason why I bought it. So if your objective for a pen is to spend $1, this is a pretty good candidate. Now let's talk about what is, for me personally, perhaps the most disappointing couple of pens I have ever purchased. Not because they're bad, but because they're really, really good. This is the Jinhao 80. You might look at the Jinhao 80 and you say, you know, this looks awfully similar to another type of fountain pen I've seen. It looks a lot like a Lamy 2000. It's quite clear and obvious that it is designed to look a bit like a Lamy 2000. Jinhao 80. This is the 03 nib. This nib here is incredibly fine. I'm very impressed with this nib. It's almost as fine as a Pilot Extra Fine on this Pilot desk pen, which is incredibly impressive. I didn't think you could get a fountain pen nib as fine as this, but a Chinese manufacturer has just managed to pull it off. It's amazing, and it's smooth as well. So fine and smooth. Can even be used upside down for even lines that are vaguely thinner. And the build quality is also very good. Just like a Lamy 2000, it's got that like textured brush material about it. Got a nice little metal bit at the end there, and the pocket clip has got the spring-loaded mechanism, so it hinges like that on the pen cap. Very nice. So I bought two of them, and I tried my absolute best to use them. And you could probably just notice that I never actually got to use this one because I could barely use one of them, to be honest. It's because the grip on this is so bad for my hands. It over a period of like 10 minutes, it starts to hurt. It causes me pain and suffering, which was a real shame because it's such a nice looking pen, and I just can't notice the pain. The pain is already happening. I can't use them. It's just so frustrating. Oh, such a shame. I actually think that this sort of brushed plastic material, it's actually slipperier than a smooth plastic material. So imagine this here is your finger, and this is smooth plastic. You know, you got a good amount of surface area here for it to contact. But if this is your finger and the plastic is like this, right? Unless you really, really press down hard to fill in these little gaps here, you actually have less surface area with this brushed plastic. I'm pretty sure that's why it's more slippery. So there we go. Some people may not actually like that this is meant to look like a Lamy 2000, but it doesn't look exactly like a Lamy 2000, does it now? In fact, there's, you know, the Lamy 2000 has a hooded nib, and it actually looks very different. It's inspired by the Lamy 2000, but it's not like a clone. I don't know who you would think you would fool that this was a Lamy 2000. Maybe if you just went like this, you went, look at my Lamy 2000. Look at it. Hey mate, I just spent 400 Australian dollars on a fountain pen. You want to see my Lamy 2000? Oh yeah, you're righto. Here it is, look. I don't have one because I can't afford one, and I'm definitely not going to buy one now because they look like much the same shape and probably the same texture as these things. They've even made one, you can also buy Lamy 2000 that's made out of brushed stainless steel, which to be honest sounds even worse for gripability. Why would you design a fountain pen that you can only hold for like 10 minutes at a time? That's really not the reason why I buy fountain pens. I use a fountain pen for like a good hour minimum, you know. So this here is the Jinhao X159. This thing is fantastic. The ink flow is really good. This is meant to be a fine nib. I honestly think it's more like a medium nib. Like if I compare it to, let's say, a medium nib from this Pilot. So it's definitely more of a medium. Unlike the other fountain pens, this one is like really comfortable to hold. And the plastic body is like extremely smooth yet grippy. It's really grippy. Hello there, let me digress a bit and let me explain what I mean by smooth, grippy plastic. I just find plastic naturally grippier than metal. That's basically it. After using this pen quite a bit, I must say it's not as grippy as it was before. It's like, I think because it's now covered with all of my hand oils, it's slightly less grippy. It's still a lot better than gripping metal. I really like this evil Ronald I've drawn here. Now, initially, when I got this pen, I did a drawing with it. Here is the drawing I did with this pen, and I was trying to use it upside down for some shading, you know, in reverse like that, and I found that the ink flow was actually pretty bad. I mean, the ink flow worked really well with the nib the right side up, probably only just slightly on the dry side, but upside down, you know, an inverted nib, it was skipping like there was no tomorrow. So I actually had to do some fine tuning on this nib. Had to flex open those tines just a tiny bit to try and get it perfect. And now I think it is perfect. So what I did was, so I removed the pen nib and the feed out from the body of the pen. I dried them off. I then held the pen nib like this and I pressed it down slightly beyond what it's designed to, you know, open up to kind of open up the tines a bit more. I could see when I was holding the tines up to the sunlight and like I was looking through the slit that the tines really kind of converged very tightly at the end of the nib, and I wanted to be slightly more of an even kind of strip of light up between the tines where the slit is. So little bit by little bit I just kept on, you know, opening up the tines slightly more and more, slowly readjusting it. Then I also washed the pen nib in soap and water, including the feed, to get any oils off that my fingers might have left there. I reassembled it. I did the final little bit of adjustment with the pen nib in the pen, and now the ink flows. It's very good. It will operate at the lightest pressure either way. Before that was not the case. I had to press down to get it to look like this. But it was straight out of the factory. It was actually pretty close to being very good, actually. I'm pretty sure they do some quality control on these pens. Someone is actually testing them out before they either get sold or sent off to sellers. So I noticed there was a tiny bit of blue ink in the nib still when it was like brand new and I hadn't used it. I think upside down it's like an extra fine. An extra fine. Because this pen is extra fine, if you know what I mean. Another thing of note about this pen, it actually has a little rubber O-ring right here. I don't think you could actually use it as a like a dropper refill and refill the whole body full of ink. Well, not at the moment in its current state, because you can actually unscrew this end piece off and there's no seal here. If someone wants to try a dropper refill, maybe you could put like a rubber, a bit of rubber sealant or glue just on the end here. and then screw the cap back on. Anyway, so the Jinhao, it's also nice. It's got a nice screw and then mechanism to put the cap back on. Yeah, so this is my favourite, definitely. These are good. Slightly fragile bodies. These are excellent quality, but I just can't use them. This one is usable and comfortable to hold, but with modifications. This one is just far too heavy to be used, and it's too slippery. You could probably drive this over with a car and it would probably be fine. This thing is just cheap. This one, for me, is the best. It's just as comfortable to hold as the Pilot Kakuno, I think. Maybe even more so. I think my hands actually do enjoy the fatter pen. I don't have tiny hands, you know. So, yeah, it feels good. The last time I drew with this pen, I drew with it for 1 hour and 50 minutes, and my hand still felt strong and undamaged afterwards, so very, very pleased. Okay, well, that's all I have to say. Goodbye, have a nice day.